Hey there folks, Wrel here. Today we'll be taking a look at the AC-X11, which is a carbine available to the new Conglomerate. We'll be breaking down the statistics, offer some advice on how to use it effectively, and hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to make a more informed decision as to whether or not the weapon will fit your personal playstyle. The AC-X11 deals 200 damage up to 10 meters and then drops off to 143 damage at 80 meters. With that damage model, you're looking at a 5-shot kill up to 10 meters, a 6-shot kill up to 53 meters, which is ridiculous, and a 7-shot kill anywhere beyond that. For headshots, since this is a 200 damage model weapon, you're looking at 3 shots to kill up to 53 meters, and then 4 shots anywhere after that. Of course, while you gain in damage, you also lose out in rate of fire, at 500 rounds per minute or 8.33 rounds per second. If you're looking at a purely theoretical time to kill, meaning that all shots land on the chest, bullet travel is instant, and your target isn't running nanoweave, you'd end up with a 0.48 second time to kill up to 10 meters, and a 0.6 second time to kill out to that 53 meter mark. For that triple headshot out to 53 meters, it'd be a 0.24 second time to kill. So this is all pretty good, provided you don't miss, but this is also theoretical, which assumes your bullet travel is instant. And unfortunately, it's not. In fact, your projectile velocity is only 480 meters per second, which is low by most standards. However, if you equip high velocity ammo, you'll bump that up to 550 meters per second, which is a huge boost, and despite the increase in recoil, it does make the weapon feel a lot better. The AC-X11 has a 24 round magazine with 144 in reserve, and it reloads in 2.05 seconds short and 2.74 seconds long. The upside here is that your short reload is more than reasonable, at 2 seconds is pretty good, but the downside is that the magazine is only 24, which is not only limiting in itself, but it also makes it easier for you to hit your long reload, which is hugely punishing, especially in tight situations. So when you're using this weapon, you either want to have really good aim or work your range so that you aren't punished too much when you miss. As far as accuracy goes, the AC-X11 recoils straight up, with horizontal shake from 0.175 to 0.2 degrees and a horizontal tolerance of only 0.4, which is amazing. Its vertical recoil is only 0.45, which is pretty heavy, but its first shot recoil multiplier is only 1.5 times, which means that there isn't going to be a huge gap between your first and second shot. So provided you're dragging down on the mouse to compensate, the recoil on this weapon is outstanding. And on top of that, you also have access to both a compensator and an advanced forward grip. When talking about your cone of fire, there's even more good news, because while you're aiming down sights and standing still, your cone of fire is 0, meaning that your first shot will always go where you want it to. Granted, this does have a limited application because movement is important in a game like this, but even your moving cone of fire is very close to other long-range carbines like the Pulsar C and the HC1 Cougar. Now the catch here, the big downside, is that the AC-X11 has the worst hip fire of any carbine in the game. Generally speaking, carbine hipfire is pretty workable regardless of what attachments you're using, and that would even be the case for the AC-X11 if the rate of fire wasn't so poor. The probability of missing shots is just too high to give it any sort of reliability at closer range. As far as attachments go, the AC-X11 has access to scopes 1x through 6x including IR/NV, a compensator, a standard suppressor, a dark light, a laser sight, an advanced forward grip, as well as high velocity ammo. Scope selection is mostly personal preference. I use the 1x reflex primarily as the screen shake tends to get a little bit too profuse, with higher range optics unless you're running battle hardened, and compensating for the weapon's high vertical recoil also becomes more difficult to deal with. Both the compensator and the suppressor are legitimate options depending on the ranges at which you're fighting, and as a light assault I've done a lot of good with the suppressed AC-X11 as the shots to kill is very consistent given the high damage range. The lower projectile velocity is definitely an issue at longer range, but it's easier to compensate for that when you're playing the light assault and you could flank enemies, or when you're up close. Equipping a compensator will worsen the already poor hipfire, but the AC-X11 is an aim down sights weapon anyway, so it's great for lowering that heavier vertical recoil. As far as rail attachments go, the laser sight isn't a bad choice, but it's probably not the best one. I did spend a fair amount of time with the laser sight, and I can't say too many bad things about it, but you are already fighting it with the weapon's design, so whether it's worth it or not to try and bridge that gap is really up to you. The advanced forward grip is hard to turn down. The weapon has great accuracy by design, and an advanced forward grip makes it even better, which also allows you to make the most out of that small magazine and high damage. High velocity ammo is kind of the toss-up here. It's definitely a worthwhile option for the projectile velocity increase, but it won't do a whole lot for your damage model at mid-range either way. If you have a hard time controlling the weapon's vertical recoil, then you shouldn't bother equipping HVA, but to me the attachment does mean more consistency against moving targets, especially further out. That said, I'd like to offer some very quick tips for handling the AC-X11 effectively. The first is to burst your shots. 4 to 6 shots is a good balance between conefire expansion versus potential damage, and when you let off your trigger, it only has to be for a moment before the conefire starts to settle. Second tip is headshots. Drag down on the mouse to compensate for the recoil, and then you aim for the head. The low first shot multiplier means you don't have to start at the neck or the upper chest, as you may have to with other weapons. Third is that try to stand still when you initiate. The weapon has perfect accuracy for the first shot while you're standing, and especially as a light assault, there are plenty of opportunities to make good use of this. You don't stand there for the entire burst, but you do want to take advantage of that lower cone of fire. Another tip is to stay out of close quarters if you can. Lower rate of fire weapons generally have a more difficult time in hectic CQC, so work your range advantage whenever it's possible. Lastly, get used to the sound the weapon makes and stay within your short reload. As your magazine starts to empty, the gun makes a different sound, and this happens on most weapons, and it's good oral feedback for timing your short reloads. Overall, the AC-X11 is not only the hardest hitting carbine in the game, but it's also one of the most controllable. It does, however, come with the necessity to aim well, thanks to that lower rate of fire and magazine limitation. When I originally started using the AC-X11, I didn't enjoy it, but as I became more accurate, and after they increased the magazine size from 20 to 24, I began to really enjoy the weapon. So my short recommendation here would be to leave the AC-X11 for something that you can grow into, as it does require a bit more precision and a bit more finesse than other weapons you have access to. If this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and if you have any thoughts, tips, or experiences with the AC-X11, go ahead, leave those thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.